money is the biggest motivator for people trying to get into cybersecurity, right? Like they'll sit there and tell you like, I want to save the world and hug teddy bears. And the reality is they want to make more money, right? Like they see all these education programs like, oh, you're going to make six figures, or these idiots with their coaching programs, you're going to make six figures. I did a post the other day. You're going to make six figures in 90 days with no IT background, just buy my coaching program for 10 or 20 grand.
No way.
No, exactly, dude. It never happens, right? It never. And you can look on, so if people don't believe me on that, just search on YouTube in comments of those people's videos of people like, I bought your program, I didn't get a job.
Hello, everyone. This is your host, Manoj Tandon. Welcome to another episode of Dark Rhiino Security Confidential. Today, we have an alumni member back with us, Mr. Ken Underhill. He appeared on the show almost 2 years ago. And just to refresh everybody's memory, he is the former CEO, executive producer, and television host at CyberLife. He is the best-selling author of Hack, the Cybersecurity Interview, a complete interview preparation guide for jumpstarting your cybersecurity career. He's been on NBC, Forbes, Reader's Digest, yada, yada, yada. You know, you can look him up. He doesn't really need an introduction.
And as I might want to remind you folks, this is a lot of work, and we appreciate you folks listening, but we always love a little bit of love. Smash and like the subscribe button. Leave your comments below. We'll be sure to answer them.
Ken, again, thank you for honoring us, for your presence. For the second time.
You know, I think we did so much cursing on that first one, if I recall correctly, that I was banned from any media appearances for a few years. So thanks for having me back finally. You know, your ears have finally healed from that. You know, you mentioned the Reader's Digest, just real quick. I had a grandmother, she's passed away now, but she was growing up. So I'm older, for those that don't know. I know I look like I'm 10, but I'm legitimately older. And so she was a big like collector of Reader's Digest, you know, and
Wow.
So when I got featured in that, and it was just on their website years ago, some article, I talk a lot of trash. They said, hey, let's publish some of this trash. And, but for me, that was actually one of the more meaningful ones personally, because, you know, she was long, you know, deceased at that point, but it was kind of like, okay, cool. You know, this one's for grandma, you know, if you will. You also mentioned the book. We came out with a second version of the book. I don't know if people could see, you know, on the screen. I actually have a copy
yes, we
here.
can.
Real quick, for anyone that still uses eBay, if you're old, any signed copy by Tia Hopkins, that stuff goes for millions on eBay. When I sign a copy, people just complain like, "Why'd you mess up my book?" Right? So I don't get it. I don't know if Tia's wife, you know, is doing a prank on me by posting there, whatever. But yeah, it is a best-selling book, international bestseller. We came out with a second version. For those that don't know, books are a labor of love, very painful. You cry a lot. At least I did, you know, writing things. But at the end of the day, we hope that it helps somebody. You know, if you help one person, in my mind, you've done good in the world. And you could sit down, you could retire and all that stuff at that point.
Well, yeah, I would say most of the world would agree. If you've helped another life, it matters. That actually matters. Yeah. You know, which is somewhat not in line with our meritocracy-based system that we have.
What do you mean, like people saying you need to get a Ferrari and
yeah,
get a Maybach, get the mansion, get the, you know.
Yeah, you need to go to Harvard, get the Ferrari, work at, you know, an investment bank. My only thing is, if everybody did that, then who would do any real work? And where would we be at?
Well, hey, I'm busy driving my Ferrari, so that's not my problem. You know,
there you go.
Figure that out. Yeah.
So I got to ask you a couple things on the new version of the book.
Yeah.
First off, we had a guest on that explained that they were able to use AI to cut the time to write a new book by 90%. Did you use any AI in the production of your second edition?
Well, no. So me, no. And as far as I know, like at least our directive from the publisher is no, you can't use AI. I don't know who they published through, if they did self-publish. Now you can use AI like for thought you know, like, hey, I'm trying to struggle with the thought on this or that. And I think this would probably make people mad, whatever. I don't think you should use AI to write a book. And the reason I say that, I guess it can save you time and, and effort and things like that. And it could probably do a pretty decent job, of writing things if you don't want to type. If you're a slow typer like me, yes, I can hack things, but I'm the slowest typer in the world. So like if you need to hack the Pentagon and you got to have someone fast typer to do it, don't call me. I'm gonna fuck it up. I was trying not to curse, but so no, I don't know, and I don't know. I don't think Chris or Tia did either. Like they actually scanned the chapters that we submitted for AI usage and anything, and it was interesting because we actually had it flag on a few things, and it was things from the first book. And I'm like, well, that's our words, that's our own words. Like but they still made us, make some adjustments to the verbiage because it was flagging as AI generated. But I'm like, they stole our book.
That's just part of the language model, right? I mean, anything you're putting
right. So you have those things. So yeah, you could use AI to write a book. My personal opinion is not to do it because I think there's so many AI generated books on Amazon. Like I can spot them. Like I'll buy a book, I'll look at the first chapter and I'm like, oh, this douchebag used AI. This is ChatGPT all the way, right? You could tell that by the words like crucial, and shit like that. So like, I personally can't stand that. And as someone that buys a lot of books, some people call it an addiction, whatever. There's worse addictions out there than buying.
I'm sure. Yes, there are.
But like, I think that what is missed these days when people use AI for everything is that you miss the human. I guess the best way to say it is like that human connection, right? Like when I read a book from way back in the day or something, like a favorite book or something, I in some way feel connected like to that author based on their writing style and based on, all these things. And when you start using generative AI to make a book, it's like cookie cutter. Like there's no flavor, right? It's kind of like, I shouldn't say this. It's going to piss people off, but I'm white. I can say this. A lot of white people don't season food, right? I'm just going to call it like it is, right? So
that's a new one, actually.
People out there will understand that. Other people will get pissed off, whatever. Sometimes you got to take a position in life. And so with that, I equate like an AI generated book is like not flavoring your food, right? Not putting any type of seasoning on there. And that's what it is to me, right? So like there's actually a lot of people in cyber that are using generative AI to write their books. I don't know. It just, to me, it takes away from it, right? It's like using AI to generate like a video with like an AI prompt, reading it, an AI voice. And I'm like, it's not the same as like Minaj or Ken or, or Emily or whoever talking trash on a podcast, right? Like if we like scripted out this podcast and just let AI generate, stuff, it's not the same. The tonality, it's just, I don't know. I just equate it to life without seasoning. Don't get me wrong, right? Like I think that AI, generative AI, I mean, there's applications for all this stuff, right? I think it's very beneficial. It saves a lot of time, especially like if you're a business owner and you're not good at copywriting or doing marketing stuff. Like AI is great at generating ideas. It can do a decent job at copywriting if if you prompt it correctly. But I think like things that are going to stand the test of time, like a book, or we hope would stand the test of time, like a book. I think those things, I think it devalues the book, in my opinion. Again, that's Ken's opinion. Someone out there is going to be like, F you, you're wrong.
Well,
but I don't think it's right. And like I said, with our publisher, we use Pact. They scanned everything, for that. And like I said, it from version 1 of the book, it was like, this is AI. I'm like,
but there was no AI in version 1 of the book. It wasn't there in the open market. But
no, exactly, not at all. Yeah, right? That's straight up Ken being ghetto in that first version of the book, and I assure you, it's still Ken being ghetto in version 2 as well.
So Ken, let me ask you, from the first edition to the second edition, what's changed in these 2 years?
No, dude,
give us some highlights.
You're gonna have to read
in the job interview. Yeah, well, don't give it away, but give us the sound bites.
The high level stuff that I can, again, once we finished the book, I like blocked it out as a traumatic event. But like the main things we did based on feedback on the first book is we added a couple more jobs, including what I call transition jobs, like I think we got product manager. I think we have a sales engineer. Like some of those jobs that like people out there right now listening that are like, I want to get a cybersecurity job. Like they can get these types of jobs at a cybersecurity company and then work their way into that more, technical SOC analyst, pen tester, whatever that they ultimately want to do. So that was one thing we added is some more jobs. We also kind of refreshed a lot of the questions. The first version was written really more for that, in my opinion, that more entry level consumer market. And some of the feedback we got was like, hey, if I'm experienced, like these interview questions, like this is, what's the CIA triad? Like if I got 10 years in, unless I messed up the interview, I'm not going to get like that question, right? Or unless they throw me a softball. So like we added some questions that are a little more kind of technical in some of the roles as well to try to capture, what people might actually face in the real world. Behavioral interview questions were, originally, for lack of better words, I think that section was, because I did some of that section. I think it was kind of ghetto on some of the answers and stuff. So like these are more, this version of it is more like if you're like coming from like say a sales job or, whatever kind of those transition jobs, like here's how you might answer these different behavioral interview questions. There's a lot more of them in there, I think, this time around. Look, I've got the book right next to me. I could look, I guess. The other thing in the last chapter of the book is what we call, I think, final thoughts or whatever. In there, the addition, at least from my end, is adding some additional places to look for jobs, for cybersecurity jobs. And I'll just say those places here on the podcast. So like you can go like on Black Hat USA sponsor list, the company sponsor list, look at those companies on the lower tier level of sponsorship, look at their websites. A lot of times you can find open jobs that are never posted on LinkedIn. They're not posted on Indeed or any of these other job boards because the companies are too small. They don't have the staff to get 10,000, resumes and look through them. Another spot is venture capital firms. So they're portfolio companies. Look at the venture capital website, look at the portfolio companies. Even if they don't have a job listed, think about your skills and how you might be able to help one of those companies. Then send an email if you can to the venture capital firm saying, hey, my name is, Emily. I'm learning cybersecurity skills right now. Here's kind of, my background of other things I've done. I'd love to see how I can help your portfolio companies, even, whether volunteer work just to gain some experience or, if there's a role open that someone thinks I might be a good fit for, I'd just love to talk to someone more about it. You're usually going to get a response in some capacity. It might be like F off, but in most cases, they're probably going to have a call with you because you're different than everybody else, right? Like everyone else is lazy.
You're actually being proactive.
100%.
Which is a 100%. Very rare thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Everyone else is on LinkedIn, submit. And then they're like, oh, I can't find a job for 2 years. Yeah, that's why. Right. It's sales. It's sales 101. It's, I got to do cold outreach. Like if I have a business and I just sit here in front of my computer, looking at my camera, looking at the mirror, like, yeah, I look good today. I'm never going to have business because I'm not marketing. I'm not doing, cold outreach to try to get clients. I'm just sitting here looking at my computer screen. I will never get a client. It's just not going to happen. I think people, when they're looking for jobs these days, like back in the day, dude, like I had to go get the newspaper. I had to save up to get like the $1.25 in quarters
Sunday
to go,
edition.
To Sunday, you know what I'm talking about, man. Sunday edition, look at the job postings. Then I had to, reach out to all those places. I couldn't submit my resume on a website that didn't exist, back then really. I had to go to places, so that's gas money, or I got to, ride a bicycle, whatever, to get there, and then hope that I can, get the actual interview or whatever. And then from there, nail the interview, stuff like that. Like this game is different, but it's actually the same, right? It's there's more tools out there. You can, it's easier to just click like, oh, apply on LinkedIn or Indeed or whatever. But if you really want to get the job, as you mentioned, you got to be proactive. You got to be a hustler. You got to go out there and grind. Like the people getting these jobs, especially ones without IT background that are trying to get into cybersecurity right away, which by the way is not really an entry level career, but that's whatever. People are going to get mad on me saying that, but it's not. It's really not. It never has been. It's just been easier traditionally in the past to get those, kind of entry level jobs, or what we call entry level. But if you're not proactive, you're not going to be one of those people getting those. You're going to be, and by proactive, I'm not talking about becoming Tri-Hackney top 3% or what, like that's not proactive, right? Yeah, that's kind of part of building your personal brand in a way, but like that's not really proactive. Proactive is more that cold kind of sales outreach, right? That finding these companies that maybe have open jobs or that are more willing to create a job for you, because the vast majority of the cybersecurity job market is not on LinkedIn. It's not on Indeed. It's not on, I'm going to call it different names like Dice, ZipRecruiter. I don't know if people still use monster.com. There used to be the thing called a career builder. Like,
Right.
And I'm not endorsing any of these sites, by the way, but these places where like everybody can find the job, you're like never going to hear back for an interview in 99.9% of cases.
So let me
you
ask
gotta
you
be
something.
proactive.
A couple things. Ghost jobs.
Yeah, ooh, I always want to dress like a ghost when I talk about this. Yeah, so ghost
navigating
jobs,
those. Yeah.
Yeah. So well, and there's really no way to navigate them, right? So for those that don't know the term ghost jobs, that's what I call it. I don't know what others call it. They call it stress, whatever. But basically, a ghost job, in Ken's definition, there's probably a real definition, but my definition, basically, a job requisition is created, but there's no actual like funding, for the job. Like it's not a real job, right? So like you'll see a job on LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever website, you'll apply for it. You won't hear jack shit. And you'll be like, oh, it must be my resume. It must be, I got to go pay some resume writer hundreds of dollars. It must be the fact that.
No, they're just not hiring. Or it's not.
Well, right. And so the ghost jobs, a couple reasons they typically, again, this is all Ken's opinion. Somebody out there get upset. Just know I don't care if you get upset. That's your problem. But one reason they do this, companies will do this, is they want to inflate their hiring visibility. Like, so basically they might be going for like a funding round. So they want investors or potential investors to be like, oh, look, you're hiring a lot. So they create these requisitions with no actual dollars to fund them in the hopes that they'll get funding, at some point in the future to be able to, fill these jobs. So you see the job though tomorrow on LinkedIn, you apply for it, you're all excited. You're already making plans in your head. I'm going to get a bigger house and Ferrari and all this stuff. And you're never going to get that job. So that's one reason they do it. Another reason they do it is they want to see what kind of people apply for the job. So for example, let's say they write a cybersecurity analyst job description.
Yeah.
They put it out there. And then they see like, okay, the vast majority of people that apply for this job have, 5 years experience. They've got Sec Plus, CISA, they've got, CISSP, insert whatever certification, right? They got college degrees, whatever. They're just trying to get a baseline of like, what's the market look like? And also, usually they've got a little field like, what are your salary requirements? Because now they're trying to figure out how low can we pay people, right? So if they ever create that real job in the future, can we get people for like the lowest rate possible, essentially, right? So it's basically intelligence gathering at that point, right? They're trying to figure out how can we.
Aren't there a lot of data collection houses that already have that? I mean,
there are, right? But like, if I'm a company, and number one, I want to go for funding. I'm going to put out the fake job. I don't want to say it's a fake job, right? But it's a job requisition, so it's actually created. And there could be a variety of reasons it's not funded, but in many cases, it's just created to inflate, those numbers and kind of make them look good, or to gather that intel. And yes, there's a lot of companies out there that have, salary data and data on what kinds of people are applying for things,
right.
What kinds of people are quote unquote high performers, and things like that, and kind of gathering those data things. But really, the revenue thing drives it, right? I think it's trying to inflate the numbers. That's the biggest thing I see driving it. I don't have any data, but I would posit or suggest, whatever the right word is, some English major out there would know the right word. But I would suggest that at least 80% of jobs you see posted are those ghost jobs, at least. And that's why when you apply for jobs through these job boards or whatever, like LinkedIn, Indeed, whatever, you never hear back. It's not usually your resume. And in many cases, it's not the ATS system. It's just simply that nobody's looking. Nobody's looking because there's no legit job there for someone to hire for.
So let's now on that topic, let's go a little deeper into a few things here. So first, you made a statement earlier about, in the old days, you'd have to save up $1.25, and then you'd have to put a postage stamp on your resume, and that cost you money. And do you think in that old system, first question, this is a three-parter, so I'll just do it in pieces. First question is, do you think we were getting better candidates the old way than the mass-generated email scan way of delivering these resumes?
Well, I think so. With that question, I think that with advances in technology, we can't do the old way. I don't want to say we're getting better candidates because I interviewed a bunch of douchebags, even back then for things. But like, I just think that the barrier to entry was higher to where like someone, I'll just pick on India, because I've got a lot of friends there. Like where like if I'm a U.S. employer, I wouldn't have 10,000 resumes from people all over the world that are looking for visa sponsorship, which in my job description, I'm not even saying I do. So I don't have like all these like kind of unqualified resumes to look through back then, but I still had them, but like just the sheer volume I think is higher these days.
That's right.
So we have to leverage, the technology. I don't think there's a good fix, man. Like I don't know. That's the next.
Well, this is exactly where we're going. You're already preempting it, so now you ruined the movie. There you go.
Yeah. So I mean, everyone wants like this simple solution, right? That Staples Easy button or the thing that vendors promise you at a conference. Just integrate our solution for $2 million and it'll fix everything. And then you pull it in and it fucks up your whole network. So, and I won't name names, but you all know who you are. But I think, leveraging tech, I think writing better job descriptions of like what exactly is needed. And I'll give an example of that. I had this hiring manager reach out. I won't say the name of the company. This was maybe a year or two ago, something like that. And they're like, hey, anyone good for this role I've got, and so I looked at the role and I mean, it's a wish list. I'm like, you want someone with Splunk, QRadar, you want them to be an expert in, I don't know, I don't remember exactly the tech stack, but I'm like, CrowdStrike Falcon or whatever EDR. They're like, you want a unicorn for this entry level job. I was like, what exactly do you need? Like if you had to pick one skill that this person came in with and then you trained them on everything else, what is that? And he's like, Linux. I want them to have, some background as a Linux sysadmin, right? So some skill set configuring and securing Linux servers. That was nowhere in that job description, dude. Like nowhere. Nothing about Linux. Nothing about like it was all this other BS, right? So I think the main thing, honestly, and I know others have spoken on this. I think the main thing is we really need, for these job descriptions, like what's like the bare minimum that I, as a hiring manager, need someone to have coming into this role. And let's put that out there, right? Let's not put this wish list, because what we do with that is we take, people of color, other disadvantaged individuals, and they don't apply for these jobs, especially women, because they don't feel they're 100% qualified for what's in the JD. And none of that in the JD is what we really need, right? If we use that as an example, and that was a big tech company that was doing that. Right? This isn't some small startup that's confused on this is a mature organization where what the hiring manager wanted was nowhere in that job description. So I think if we had to fix something, if we as an industry put our efforts on something, let's focus on that stuff first. Let's come to a consensus on what are like the key skills that a job title as cybersecurity analyst needs, because we see, analyst at one place is 100% different. Like, you see a job description, you're like, no, that's engineer skills. Or you see the job description for like pen tester, and you're like, well, no, they're just looking for someone that can do some basic vulnerability scanning. They're not, it's not like an actual pen tester they're looking for, right? So like we as an industry, we've like let this crap balloon out, right? Like, I don't want to say that when we did newspaper stuff that was any better, but you had a small amount of space in that newspaper to advertise as an employer, and you had to put like the couple of key things that you were really looking for. And I'm not saying the talent pool is better. Like I said, there was a lot of douchebags back then too, applying for things they weren't qualified for, but you had to, be more specific. And I think we've gotten away from that with a job board where we can put, I don't even know what
years.
Yeah, we can have like an 8-page job description of our wish list, and
So
but that's not what we really need.
So let's get to that as well. That, one of the beauties, I think one of the things that made cybersecurity such an interesting place, and this is my opinion, was the fact that you didn't have one type of candidate. You didn't have your typical computer science guy with a 4-year degree, a technical background, and they went into cybersecurity. You had a lot of diversity from which people came into this industry, and that brought a lot of diversity of thought. And I think that is absolutely needed when you're looking at building a defense in depth approach and you're trying to build a system against a group of people who the hacking community has not also typically a computer science group. Those guys came from all over the place. Their common thread, they're ultra creative and they're super motivated.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with a security plus, a network plus, CompTIA, whatever. I don't think any of those guys, in fact, have any of those qualifications. But they're still geniuses at what they're doing. The creative element is there. Not that I'm saying that what they're doing is right, but you got to admire the fact that you have a bunch of people who are beating the run-of-the-mill crowd, who are putting creativity to the test. So are we not doing a disservice by closing down our hiring to this meritocracy-based environment and eliminating the possibility of people like we had before that could enter into our community from maybe non-technical fields, but brought a huge thought advantage that we normally would not get just by having certain certifications?
Yeah, so I think an extremely complex issue that is way outside of what we can accomplish on this podcast. But some thoughts around it is, there's people that psychology degrees. There's
human factors people that I've seen.
There's a woman that she used to sell like swimming pools, and she's one of the top people in GRC, these days. So like I think our main issue, right, is, for lack of better words, I'm going to say the bad guys, right? But I think that here in the U.S. we're very spoiled and we don't understand. A lot of people, when they think of someone's doing malicious hacking, they don't understand that in a lot of other places around the world, they don't have capitalism. So they don't have the economic opportunity we have in the U.S., right? And I say they're not spoiled. And I'm not, as someone that's come from extreme poverty and like not having food in many cases growing up and stuff like that, I'm speaking on this. I'm not like, I didn't have that privilege, right, of some people. And so, but I think that here in the U.S., we forget that in other places, in a lot of cases, this is the only way for them to make any money to feed their families, right? And I'm not saying that's all of them, right? I mean, there's definitely that organized crime element that's, solely focused on, profiting the organization. But when we think about the lower tier people, there's a lot of complexity in that of when we say a bad guy, where are you in the world, right? Because the U.S. hacks, other countries and stuff. So like, we're the bad guy there, but like here it's like, yeah, go US, right? So like, we're not going to dive into that really in the podcast, but I just want like people to kind of think like outside the box a little bit on that regard of like, when we're talking about the opposing parties, it's very complex of why people do the things, that
absolutely.
But when we're
money though is a big motivator though. I mean, you see a lot.
Well, no, 100%, right? I mean, like, but that's what look, dude, money is the biggest motivator for people trying to get into cybersecurity, right? Like they'll sit there and tell you like, I want to save the world and hug teddy bears. And the reality is they want to make more money, right? Like they see all these education programs like, oh, you're going to make 6 figures, or these idiots with their coaching programs, you're going to make 6 figures. I did a post the other day. You're going to make 6 figures in 90 days with no IT background, just buy my coaching program for 10 or 20 grand.
No way.
No, exactly, dude. It never happens, right? It never. And you can look on. So if people don't believe me on that, just search on YouTube in comments of those people's videos of people like, I bought your program, I didn't get a job. I'm still waiting 2 years later. So like, I forget where I was going with that, but here, some of the challenges we have on the right side, if you will, I'm putting that in quotes if you can't see my fingers, if you're listening, we follow the law, right? And hopefully not if you're Boeing and you're assassinating your employees. Anyways, whole other conversation.
Hate mail. Now we're getting
we're getting all sorts of hate mail off that one. They'll be like, we're not. If I start seeing random people in my neighborhood that I don't recognize, I'm like, oh, yep, someone from Boeing heard that. But our challenge is, right, we're following the law, right? So basically, we've got a challenge of like where we've got to follow the rules. We've also got a challenge of like, how can we, with so many candidates, how can we have some kind of measurable thing to like measure against to see like, is there kind of a bare minimum, right? And that's where we, traditionally it's been certifications, which for someone that grew up poor like me, like I didn't have certs till I was in for a long time, dude. Same with college degrees. I was
going to say it would disqualify a whole bunch of people, but
here's the thing, but so like I think when we talk about job descriptions, I'm not talking about keep listing certs. I think that's wrong. I think it's nice to like, hey, you got this knowledge, but I think it's wrong because it's a blocker, right? I think college degrees are a blocker. I think we should never be asking for that because a lot of people don't have that money to, like, if you're going to pay for it, great. Yeah, whatever. You want me to have a PhD, pay for it, right? But if you're not, if I got to pay out of pocket, if I grew up poor, I don't have that money. I mean, yeah, I can get scholarships or whatever, but like, dude, back when I was growing up, I mean, yeah, there were scholarships, but I didn't know that. Like, the information wasn't there, right? It wasn't like my high school career counselor was useless on that. I don't remember his name either, but I'll still tell him he's useless.
That's how useful he was.
Right. No, exactly, right? Like that information wasn't there. And yeah, it's better these days, but still, like I think for me personally, I think a job description, like I mentioned with that one about the Linux, experience, excuse me. I think that as a hiring manager, whoever's writing that job description, you need to come up with like a absolute top 3 to 5 of like actual skills, or think outside the box of like transferable skills. Like, okay, I really need them to have good communication skills, right? Or I really need them to have good EQ or whatever. That's what a job description should be, right? It shouldn't be about certs, and again, I understand certain contracts will have certain requirements of the people coming in need to have, this or that. Right. I get that. But when I'm talking about here is I'm talking about more broader perspective of the industry, because the vast majority of contracts and things, they don't require a cert. They don't require.
Well, look at our 3-letter agencies that are recruiting out of high schools. Those kids don't have certs, and they're going to some of the most prestigious agencies in the world.
Well, those places, they have to recruit out of high school because they don't pay a lot, right? Because once someone gets that experience and they get the clearance, like, hey, I'm going private sector making like triple, what I was making.
But they still don't have the cert when they got in.
100%, dude. And I think that, we've tried it, in my opinion, we've tried it the certain degree way, right? We've been doing that for, 15, 20 years at least. Let's try this other way. Let's try Ken's idea here of like, let's actually look at the job that we have open. Let's say, what are the, and let's even work with, the other team members who are going to be working with this person. Like, what if we came together and we pulled together a list of 3 to 5, not just technical skills, but I'm talking about soft skills as well, because someone coming from a background at McDonald's probably isn't going to have that they may have try hack me or whatever, but they're not going to have that technical skill set usually, as far as experience and stuff. So like, instead of us gatekeeping like we always do in this industry, which is a lot of BS, let's instead come up with that 3 to 5 bullets of our absolute top combined technical and soft skills. Should be at least 3 soft skills on that list. Let's say 5 bullet skills. 3 of those need to be the top soft skills that someone absolutely needs to have. And then a couple of, like, we really want someone to have, these technical skills. Now, if you want to go crazy and you got extra time, then you could say, like, here's the 10 nice to haves. Like, if they had these, we'd be like, yeah, that's the one for us. The other thing I think we need to do, and many orgs already do this, is I think we need to sanitize. When we put a resume in front of someone, we need to sanitize the data off that. And what I mean by that is I'm not talking about the experiences. I'm talking about the name, because I've done testing on my own with fake resumes, and I've had lily white sounding names like Preston and stuff like that. And I've had more diverse names with the exact, like literally the exact same work experience listed, the exact same certifications, everything else. It's the exact same resume, just the names changed. And the diverse names, nothing. Right? Like in most cases, and again, this is a Ken statistic. I don't remember exactly what it was, but probably at least like 70-80% of the time, the Lily White sounding name, like a Preston or a Stacy or whatever, that would get a response like, hey, sometimes it was a rejection, but it would get a response of like, either we want to move, we want to interview or whatever. Vast majority of the time, well, and I would say like maybe like, I don't know, man. It's been a while since, it's been years since I did this, but like 10-15% of the time, if it was like, if the name was like Tamiko or something,
right,
that's when they would get, like 10-15% of the time there'd be a response, and most of them were rejections. Again, I'm not saying that's every org, but I mean, I applied. I I did that experiment like, it was probably like 3-4 years ago. It was before the C word. We can't see the C word because social media might block us, on the podcast.
Right.
But I just did that, and I only sent out maybe like, I think I put together like 15, 20, fake resumes with fake names, but it was like, it was literally just changing names. I just coming up with names off the top of my head and sending them out there and seeing, what happened. And I was applying at big companies. I was applying to small companies, just trying to see, what's what type of thing. Some of the names were my sock puppet accounts. So I'm obviously not going to say those names at all. But I think that, I see on social media, some people are like, we don't have an issue of diversity anymore. We do, right? And I think what we're talking about here, these barriers, we need to get rid of those, but also like the barriers of if someone's got a different name, that's, like AI is biased. Like, I'm sorry.
Well, it's going to be biased by the people.
No, right. Well, funny. Well, not a funny thing, horrible thing. But I was Adobe came out with generative AI. That was last year, maybe. And like you could do images or whatever, and so they were all excited about it, whatever. So I tested it, and I was just trying to get a photo, because my wife's black. I was just trying to get a photo of a white guy and a black woman together as a married couple. Dude, no, like it was giving me black and black and white, and then it gave me like Hispanic and Hispanic. I'm like, black woman, white male, and I tried to give it like, hair colors and, and as many, it was totally biased, dude. And so I sent them a message and I'm like, this is what they did, and kudos. I don't know if they ever fixed the issue, but like they at least responded or like, oh no, we're so sorry. And, we're going to, send this information to our developers and, who knows what happened there. But like, when other people have done experiments like this, with generative AI, and it's going to be biased based on who designed it, which in a lot of cases is, not me, because I suck at software engineering, dude. Do not, like, if you need something coded, I'm not your dude. I'm not your dude. I will mess it up. Again, that goes back to the slow typing, the two fingers, whatever like that. So, but I think, to your question, I think it's such a complex issue. I think if we start with those job descriptions, though, if we look at what someone really needs, and we really also look at the soft skills and pick like our top ones of that, I think we still keep the diversity coming in, because we absolutely need that. Like some of the most brilliant minds in cybersecurity right now and in the past that I've met are people that have those non-IT backgrounds, and when they think through a problem, it's just amazing. At least for me, it's just been amazing watching them work through a problem based on, whatever. Let's say they, mowed lawns or did landscaping or whatever for a living. Like, just seeing them think through a problem set a different way. It's like, oh my God, I never would have thought about.
And that's what made our industry so cool.
Right. And that's what, and let's just, for those listening, that are maybe newer, it's like, we're not saying that, we've still got a huge problem with cybersecurity of diversity, right? Like, it's still a very male dominated field. It's very, I think maybe a quarter of the industry is women, and even smaller that is women of color. So we've still got a huge way to go. that all being said, when people think about diversity, we traditionally they'll think about women or, other races and not a white male. But when we talk about diversity of thought, it's not always that.
But let me say something on this thing. There was just yesterday, Apple News actually had a statistic on it, or it was an article I read on Apple News, that most people who get fired, they get fired in the first 18 months of employment. Of those getting fired, only 11% get fired because they didn't live up to a technical expectation. 89% of the people get fired because they have lacking or misrepresentative or dysfunctional soft skills of some kind. Whether they can't participate in a team, or they're abrasive, or they don't know how to write, they can't communicate. But for everyone listening, and hiring, that should be pause for thinking. That's a big thing, that 89% of the people get let go because of soft skills, which means, as you're saying, if we're going to put 5 things down, put 3 that are solid soft skills and pick maybe 1 or 2 that are the technical, because they're in reality, the technical you can train.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can train anyone on technical. Like there was a woman years ago. I trained her, and she had no technical. She hadn't even used a computer in years. And like in the first week of kind of mentorship / training, she was hacking things at like maybe a 3 to 4 year pen tester level, right? Like anything technical can be trained. I can do it. I can do it myself. I can have other team members sit with you. I can send you to paid training like your Splunks or whatever of the world. There's a million ways I can train you technical. College classes, try Hack Me, Hack the Box, whatever the Security Blue Team. I feel like I'm doing free marketing for these places all of a sudden. But like technical skills, 100%. Soft skills, for the most part, are built by life, right? And so like if you have been spoiled rotten by your parents your whole life, and they're always getting you out of trouble, stuff like that, when you come into corporate and you're used to, getting your way, there's that reality check, right? You're going to, probably get let go pretty quickly because you're not a team, player usually. So soft skills for the most part are built by life. Now you may be saying, well, Ken, I wasn't really poor like you. I had, a safe home. I didn't get beat every day, all these things. So how do I develop these, right? You could do that through courses, but also just going out and interacting with humans. Like, I'm a huge introvert. I know it seems weird when you see me in these podcasts. You're like, oh, no, he's a total extrovert, whatever.
Yeah.
Dude, I try to hide. Like, if I go to a conference, I'm trying to hide in the corner or something, because I'm just an introvert by nature. And I'm just like, oh my God, all these people, what's going on, right? So to build your soft skills, you can, do courses, things like that, if you need to work on those. I will say that the easiest 2 ways not to get fired, and this is like all the people I've mentored, or most of them, I just tell them this. Like, this is all I did when I worked in corporate. That's all I focused on. Here's a secret, super secret. Get your pen, paper, your phone notes, whatever. Here you go. Make your boss's life easier and make their boss's life easier. And depending on your bosses, you have to like just go ask him like, hey, Minaj, like what's a couple things I can take off your plate in the next few months to make your life easier? He's going to figure out something. He doesn't want to do as much work, right? So like, he's going to be like, all right, what can I, and that's also a great question for an interview. Like, when I start this job in the first couple of months, like, what are some things I can take off your plate to make your life easier? Right. And then you want to figure out who your boss's boss is and have a meeting with them at some point once you're hired. And then ask them that exact, like, hey, I want to grow as a leader in this organization. So as you kind of think about me, maybe over the next, 6 months or a year, is there anything that I can help you with? Anything I can do to, to make your life easier, et cetera? When you do it like that, I'm not going to say you'll never get laid off, but like, you're like usually one of the very last people. You're definitely like, it's rare that you would get fired. You really have to screw up. I'll give you an example real quick. I worked at this place in corporate. I never had an official performance review like how I would have to go into a meeting and, and sit there, and they just did them and gave me like top ratings every time and got me the top, pay range every single time. In fact, when I left there, I was like, doing the exit interview, I'm like, I was like, one thing that I never had a performance review. So I never knew like if I was doing, good or not. And they're like, oh yeah, that's when I learned. They're like, yeah, we were just, giving you top ratings and, whatever, because you made our lives easier. And that was my boss and, and their boss that I was talking to. So it works. That's the easiest way not to get fired, dude. Like, figure out how you can make their lives easier. That's
now there's some real usable advice. Now, unfortunately, we are at the hour and we haven't even, but I want to give you the last minute. What do you want to plug here, Ken?
Well, I should come up with a coaching program, right? And promise people, 90 days, you're going to make six figures.
Yeah.
I think that I'll plug actually organizations like Breaking Barriers Women in Cybersecurity, or BBWIC, where I sit on their advisory board. Great organization. If you're a woman in cybersecurity or trying to get in cybersecurity, men too, but mostly it's a safe place for women. I'll plug Women's Society of Cyber Jitsu. So Mary Galloway, many people know her. She's the CEO over there. Phenomenal individual. Of course, I'll plug people like Tia Hopkins. I'll plug Minorities in Cybersecurity. For those that don't know about that organization, Mary Cheney, who's a privacy attorney who will sue you because she's an attorney if she doesn't like you. That's a great organization. They have a conference every year. I think next year it's in March. Usually in March in the Dallas, Texas area. So if you're in the U.S., you want to go to that. It's a more kind of intimate conference. Great place to network, with like-minded people. And then the last one is going to be Black Girls Hack, which I also do some volunteer work with. There's just a lot of great organizations. I think that when we talk about networking, people always think about networking on social media, but I think that the lesson here is there's a lot of great organizations, depending on who you are and your interests. Get plugged into those, because that oftentimes can lead to a lot of jobs as well. So for me personally, I guess, just plug in the book, like, buy a copy if you want to.
Let us know when it's going to be out,
Oh, so it's already out on Amazon. The second edition, it's like weird. Like they put it as a separate listing instead of just like updating the whatever. I don't know why they did that. There's probably a reason. So you actually have to look for the second edition of the book. But it will be the one that says like international bestseller on the cover. It's the same cover. Let me just show it real quick for those watching the video. It's like the same black woman on the cover, which again, we had to fight for. Like, I don't know why we have to fight for that every single time, but is what it is. But this version has international bestseller on the cover, because the first version was an international bestseller. Hopefully this one is too. We'll see,
That's
see
awesome. Well,
yeah.
Ken, you do good work, and you know what? Unfortunately, we're out of time, but don't take 2 years to come back.
Yeah, well, send me the invite anytime, man. We'll book it for 6 hours next time, and we'll get
Yeah,
we'll just go crazy.
Then people just throw a lot of stuff at us, like, who does a 6 hour long podcast?
Oh my goodness! Can you imagine the hate mail from a 6 hour?
Oh my God, people would be like, you guys are. Well, we get a lot more than hate mail.
All sorts of things, man. Probably get some bomb threats called into us. Who knows what? People are weird these days.
Well, Ken, it's a pleasure as always.
Yeah, pleasure's mine, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you again. Take care.